I feel like Dr. Pulaski, like one of her weird frizzy hairs is better than the entire character of Beverly Crusher.
Okay. Hey, everybody, this is Dave. Here's Bob.
Ahoy.
And we are going to talk about episode 9 of Star Trek Picard season 3 called Vox. Spelled with 2 O's and a tilde? Tilde? I didn't take Spanish. How do you say that?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I almost wonder if we got like a... we both watched it early on Thursday so we could avoid spoilers. And as I was sitting in my office at my day job, I saw that come up, and I wondered if somehow I had accessed like the Spanish language variant of this episode.
That's weird. Yeah, because now I'm looking on...
Nobody else has the little tilde over anything.
No. Well, some do, some don't, but nobody has 2 O's, which I swear
mine did
is
not,
a thing or was a thing.
I don't think mine had 2 O's. Mine was just the VOX, but the little thing over the O.
So weird. I don't know. I don't get it.
That,
because Vox makes sense as
is that even a Latin thing?
No, I don't think that... didn't take Latin, but I'm pretty sure that's not a thing.
Okay.
Have you ever seen a Latin phrase where they've used those? So, you've never seen a Latin phrase at all?
I mean, vedi vidi vinci.
There it is. That's a
post hoc ergo propter hoc.
There it is. After the fact, therefore before the fact?
After the thing, therefore because of the thing. Only it's not always true. In fact, it's almost never true.
Is that true?
That's from The West Wing.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't watch The West Wing. All right, well, that's the end of the podcast. We'll see you guys later.
Yep.
Thanks.
Excellent job on Star Treks.
Let's do it. Hey, before we start, a thing that I never remember. Follow us, please, on Twitter. We're at Malarkey FM. On YouTube, we are Malarkey FM Podcast. I will put a link to those in the show notes. You are allowed. Bob said this was okay. If you pause and then go to the show notes and then click those things and follow us, that'd be great. And then I should say something like, tell a friend and keep the pirate ship afloat. And then people will get that reference. Should
we just sit here for a minute while people do that, or should we just assume that they can pause?
You know what? Here, enjoy a minute of these Star Trek sounds.
You know how... Wait, before we... There really isn't much to talk about this week. Before we go into that, we just bought a new oven.
Oh, congratulations.
And it's interesting. When you said Star Trek sounds, I was thinking of, how much you love the door chime on the Enterprise D, before Picard says come.
This sound.
What's the sound again? Do it. Give me a little taste. The sound on my oven when the kitchen timer goes off, I'm pretty sure it's the first several notes of the John Cena walkout music.
Oh. Ba-da-da-da.
I will record it and send it to you. And can you put it at the end of this podcast for me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Your time isn't now for that song. It's later.
Yes.
Woof. John Cena. Last time, he was not last time on Star Trek Picard. So where were we? Vadic and the Changelings controlled the Titan. They were terrorizing and occasionally executing the crew. Data and Lore merged. The Rikers and Worfy returned to the Titan. Vadic died, and the entire TNG crew was on screen in one shot, in one place, around a conference table with purple chairs for the first time in, 20 years? And at the end of the episode, Deanna and Jack started psychotherapy, and they were going to go find out about this damn red door we keep hearing about. Oh, also Frontier Day is coming up because Frontier Day, well, the old joke used to be it's always coming up, but Frontier Day's here.
It is here.
We pick up where we left off last episode. Jack and Deanna are continuing the therapy session, and there's redness everywhere. We talked about this in a previous episode. They're outside the red door. The red blossoms are blowing in the hallway. Though the blossoms are a metaphor for interconnected life. Deanna sort of thinks that might be a beautiful metaphor. He's like, no, that's a terrifying metaphor. I guess red is actually, in fact, a leitmotif of Star Trek Picard at this point, right? Like his eyes go red when he does whatever. That's Jack. There's the red door. There's those root things that are red. The blossoms in the hallway. Remember we talked about the red lady clue in the first episode. I don't know what red is. It's certainly not the color of the bad guy that we will be introducing.
Were the red blossoms before this episode, or was this the first shot of that?
It's the first I remember of it.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, they did a nice little literary thing there, right? Where they put them in there not just as an effect shot, but made them talk about it. Because, as it turns out, Deanna is the one who opens the door. That severs their connection. You know, they're sitting, in real life, they're sitting across from each other in chairs, and she, who is somewhat psychic, is holding his hands. And in the fake world in Jack's mind, they're standing in a corridor, the famous corridor in the Titan, in front of the red door. And she opens the red door, sees what's in there, and then that severs their connection in the real world, and she just runs off, like right out the room, to tell Picard and Beverly that the suspense is killing me. It's the Borg. Yeah, it's the Borg. You know how we know that? There's a thing that looks an awful lot like a Borg cube, and then the Borg collective says, we are Borg. So we actually guessed this in the speculation segment last time. It is slightly confusing because this doesn't seem to be how the Borg operate or operates. I don't know how to say that exactly. It doesn't seem very Borg-like. They seem to be baking? No, they seem to be breaking a lot of rules. So they do there's a lot of exposition in this episode. I'm not complaining, but they got a lot to explain. So here's what Beverly says.
It's done fairly well, though.
Yeah, I think so. And they spread it out too. You'll notice this as I quote things. They're not just giving it all. They're not dumping it all on one character. One way that they use the so many characters they have in this episode is they give them lines and like pass them around the room as they're explaining things. So it's Beverly who says that biology doesn't always need words to communicate. So she's drawing an analogy with the real world. Flocks of birds turn in unison, the architecture of a beehive, an ant colony, all wordlessly connected. Some transceivers and receivers are organic. So too, this line flowed right off the tongue. So too must be the technology inside Jack, because that's how people talk. I'm nitpicking. I'm being mean. I'm sorry. We learn here too that the Borg have been silent for a decade. That's news to me.
Yeah, that's another confusing aspect. I don't really care if they totally ignore the events of season 1 and 2, but the Borg were in both of those seasons, right?
Unless so, the story of season 2 wound up being that one of the characters became Borg, and that, yes, absolutely, the Borg showed up at the end of last season. I don't think last season took place 10 years ago. There may be a distinction to be drawn that those Borg, a sort of kinder, gentler Agnes Girardi run Borg, is not the real Borg and not who Beverly is referring to, but I have to do that work for that to make sense. They didn't explain it in the show.
So the Borg in season 1 were basically the Borg, that Borg cube that was being reclaimed by the Romulans and whoever else. And then they crash it, I guess, right?
Right.
The second season, was that all in a parallel universe, or was that... I guess what I'm getting at is the events of the Borg with our characters, was that all through Q, or was that actually happening?
No, it was real.
Okay.
It happened.
Okay.
Because at the end, it all tied in, and that's how Agnes appeared to Picard a couple hundred years, I guess, later.
But would everybody
on the bridge.
remember those events? Like, would Beverly know about those events?
Well, she wasn't... Yeah, I guess she would, because it happened.
But she wasn't present for those events, is what I'm saying, right?
Right. But she may have heard about it.
But not
heard that it happened.
I guess theoretically it might not have been like front page news.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yep. It's possible.
But
we shouldn't have to do this much work, I guess.
And it does not seem like this is supposed to be 10 years after season 2, right? Because that's just crazy.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
But again, like I feel like there's some memory that I'm not quite recalling where it was like, this is a kind Borg collective, not affiliated with the terrible Borg collective. But I don't know that for sure. Yeah. And it may wind up being that's part of the explanation for what's going on here or in the next episode. But I mean, they just straight up say the Borg have been silent for a decade and don't explain it. So that may be, I mean, if the rest of this season is any indication, it may be that they're just sprinkling that as foreshadowing. We're gonna come to a couple of big things that were foreshadowing that were essentially one-liners in earlier episodes. So, it's not out of the question to me that they might do something with that. But at this point, Picard says he's gonna tell Jack.
Oh no!
What the problem is. Deanna says that there are Starfleet protocols that have to be enacted because Jack is in fact the weapon that Vadic was looking for. This is, I guess this is a little bit of a leitmotif, but how many times has Starfleet protocol come up? Sometimes Shaw's invoking it, sometimes Riker's invoking it. A lot of the time, it doesn't seem to make, like, the classic example in my mind is Riker saying Starfleet protocol is to just sit in the middle of this nebula and wait to be rescued when nobody, including that character, would think that there's any rescue coming.
Yeah.
This is the opposite, where it actually seems like, he could be a danger to everybody, and Deanna is the one who invokes protocol to the parents of the child. So, Picard and Jack talk it out. I really liked the lighting and the staging in this scene. I mean, they're just in crew quarters as far as I can tell.
Oh, I was going to say, this is a very strange section of the 10 Forward bar.
Well, no, I'm increasingly convinced they just demolished that set to build other things.
Totally knock it down, yeah.
Because it was everywhere and then went nowhere. And nobody said anything about it. But because on the one side, they do those not close-up shots, wide-angle shot. So they're not shooting Picard or Jack. Picard is on the far left, Jack is on the far right, and basically the camera's at the door. What do you call that shot?
A wide shot, a master shot?
You. Okay, yeah. And so and Picard's sitting on a bed to the left, and Jack is sitting at a desk to the right. So I'm assuming it's crew quarters. It's very dark. They're doing sort of the same. Terry Matalas, showrunner, savior of Star Trek at this point, directed this episode. But he's doing the same thing that Riker, whose real name is escaping me at this point.
Jonathan Frakes.
Thank you. Did in the second, I think, episode of this season where Picard confronted Beverly and they're in sickbay and they wide shots of them being far apart. Like it's the staging telling the story of the mental thing.
I'm looking at the shot you're talking about right now. It's very symmetrical, which is pleasing. There's those sort of, you're right in the middle of the room, and then so you have the ceiling, pointed down, the walls pointing in, the diagonals of the top of the, where the wall meets the ceiling. It's and I guess maybe it's just our age or my brain, but when I see symmetrical shots now, I start thinking of Oh, what's his name? Rushmore.
Wes
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
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 That's what I thought too, but I thought, no way he's going to be thinking of that. But
part of our
he's
visual language now.
Yeah, right. Well, he does that. He's amazing at that. He's always doing thirds and, that stuff like that. So yeah, the staging of this just jumped out at me. By the way, I put the link to the show notes in the Zoom thing. If I when I call out these screenshots and things, you're free to scroll, but I did take screenshots because I thought we would be talking about them. I'll put a link to this wild show notes document in the show notes if anybody else wants to follow along. So Dad breaks the news to his son, and Jack is upset, to say the least. Although why wouldn't he be? And he's talking, he can't figure out how much of him is him, which must be sort of excruciating, right?
Yeah.
He says, "Oh, funny, I've always known the world was imperfect. Broken systems, wars, suffering, violence, poverty, bigotry." And first of all, actually, I'm going to pause there. There's plenty of room in the universe for that kind of stuff. But remember, Star Trek was about utopian Earth from Gene Roddenberry? I think utopian Earth is lunacy from a practical standpoint, but I didn't make the rules for Star Trek, which I love, so I run with it. Anyway, he hasn't been around. It's not like he did go to school on Earth, right? That's where he got his accent in London.
Yeah. Yep.
But anyway, I guess you could make the argument that he was, they're talking about our time, I think, is what they're doing. But I guess what they're really...
But not the totally offensive way of series past. Yeah.
Right. And he said, but I think the way you could justify this as his character is, well, he's been flying around the universe, galaxy. Sorry.
Quadrant, actually.
Thank you. With his mom for many years, seeing places that aren't utopias, right? That was the thing about the Next Generation in particular is Earthlings had solved their problems, so they explored Earth problems with people who had prosthetics on their noses and foreheads, right?
Or the Space Irish.
That's true. Top of the morning to you. He says, Jack does, and I always thought if people could only see each other, hear each other, speak in one voice, act in one mind together, who knew a little cybernetic authoritarianism was the answer? Yeah. But the Borg, I think maybe Picard says this. My notes may be crappy at this point, but the Borg, they don't care. But Jack says, but I do. So how does that factor into this? And that's sort of the whole thing, right? Like he doesn't know. I mean, essentially there's Borg inside of his head. His dad just told him, I didn't pass down a deadly disease to you. I passed down a deadly species to you. And he doesn't know who he is and where the Borg begin, right? When he wants to leave, Jack wants to give himself up. They have been pumping this, they've been building to this moment and what happens in this episode for many episodes. How many times have we stopped and talked about Jack being like, I am not worth it. Get me, episode 2, he's like, get me off the ship. I'm not worth it. Shaw was like, get him off the ship. It's not worth it. Oh, he's your son. He is worth it. But now the person that they have to convince is Jack. And up until now, they've been able to do that. But when he tries to leave and essentially turn himself over and confront the Borg, I mean, they're worried about 2 things at least. First, he'd go there with good intentions and fail, and then they'd lose their son. But second, he'd go there with good intentions, and the Borg would take over. And Picard is in a position to know what happens when the Borg take over.
Yeah,
right?
and it is kind of interesting if you think about it, that basically this happened. So he spent the entire series.
Yeah.
Basically, the entire events of the series have been taking place to stop Jack from just getting up and going to the Borg, and that's just what he ends up doing.
Yeah. He does it anyway. Sorry, there's guards at the door when he's about to leave, which Patrick Stewart does a lot of sad face in this because everything he has to do sucks a lot of the time. And Jack does what Jack would do, which is his eyes glow red and he overtakes the guards and marches them right out there because nobody's going to stop him from leaving this time.
I do like the touch of they point he has them point their guns at Picard, but he doesn't do that to his mother.
Oh, that's very good, because he's about to run into his mom in the hallway.
And they just sort of lean, they both of the guards just sort of lean their shoulders in.
Yep, and she's pleading. That's a very good decision, and a good eyes, Bob.
Thanks.
They she's basically pleading with him, "Don't go. We can figure this out." I think the most interesting thing about this scene is that they explain, he figures out what that voice in his head has been all along. Because remember, like, they very clearly, I figured that out episodes ago with headphones and rewatching. Headphones? Do we call them that in 2023?
I call them cans, baby.
There you go.
Get your cans on, son.
It was clearly they were using Beverly Crusher's voice. I was like, why are they doing that?
Well, or
Jack,
some of the time at least.
Yes, not always, but it was, a woman's voice, this voice beckoning him to come home. And he says at this point, the voice in my head's the Queen. That would be the Borg Queen. So he steals a shuttle and disables tracking and zooms away from the Titan. It looks like the shuttle is, it looks like a shuttle from Star Trek.
Yeah.
I have very little to say about it other than, yeah, that makes sense. That looks like a shuttle to me.
And there's some more hot shuttle action later in this episode. I'm always a little unclear, kind of like X-Wing fighters. How are these always warp capable? Are there only certain shuttles that are warp capable? How, in fact, are shuttles warp capable? They
got one of them.
The starships have these massive warp cores and, antimatter and matter and nacelles. And this is like, or just a little box
that
can do that.
Well, they needed that one.
Yeah.
See, so it is.
Yeah.
There's a brief scene of Beverly and Picard doing their staged like a soap opera, which is two people talking to each other, but not looking at each other and looking out the window. But it's, it's slowly dollying in.
That's kind of a cool shot. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. It's not a bad shot. Where Picard says he inherited the best of you and the worst of me, which I think is a great line. And then Beverly says, I gave Wesley space and I lost him to it. So I watched Jack closer, so close, I couldn't see what was right in front of me. And Picard sort of protests. And Beverly says, there must be something I can do, and I'm going to go find it. And she walks out of frame. Do you want to talk about, I guess, Wesley for a moment? It's
sure.
Probably like we're running out of time to do it. So,
TikTok.
What's there to say about Wesley? He was the kid in The Next Generation, the son of Beverly Crusher, the late Jack Crusher.
Yeah, who
was Picard's best friend.
I have a lot of TNG hot takes that I'm not shy about, as you know.
Okay. Yeah,
I think I've mentioned my problem with the existence of 10 forward on the Enterprise D.
You may have mentioned it once, but quickly it would be because it's impossible.
I mean, everybody knows. I don't need to remind you guys. Andrew Probert clearly said,
but you will.
That is not. It is. There's not space for it at the rim of the saucer. Another hot take. I believe that Dr. Pulaski is literally a trillion times better than Dr. Crusher as a character.
You're allowed to be wrong.
I feel like Dr. Pulaski, like one of her weird frizzy hairs, is better than the entire character of Beverly Crusher.
Okay.
And another thing, which season 2, maybe we can do a whole pod on this.
Yeah.
Season 2 is possibly my favorite season. I just think it has the most fun stories, which I guess is related to my love of Dr. Pulaski. Also, interestingly, I have never really hated Wesley Crusher. People will say that there's sort of there's kind of received wisdom that children don't mind watching children who are older than them. Have you heard that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when TNG came on, I would have been, I don't know, 6th grade maybe. And Wesley Crusher was supposed to have been at least a few years older than I was when the show premiered. I just thought it was cool that there was a kid on the Enterprise. Oh my God, I would die to be. So basically, I think Roddenberry knew what he was doing to someone my age. Like, it absolutely worked for me what he was doing. It's like, oh my God, this kid gets to be on the Enterprise, and then, he gets to sneak onto the bridge the one time, and then he gets to be on the bridge. Like, I thought...
It's a character insert for you.
Yeah, basically. You know. And I mean, later on, I kind of understood where people were coming from, but I think by the time that I got old enough to where I would be annoyed by Wesley Crusher, the writers had already toned him way down.
Yeah, he was a big part of the early seasons, this sort of whiz kid aboard the Enterprise, but he effectively became a recurring character by the end of the run.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say.
Well, he was the regular cast up until what, season 4 or 5? I think 4 was when there was that episode where aren't they going somewhere in a shuttle and they crash, or they're they crash and him and Picard have to cross a desert or something. I think that was his final like episode as a series regular. Even though he came back in several times.
Right. And he went to Starfleet Academy or something, and
he kind of left, and he kind of met Doctor Who at one point, and he became like Doctor Who's companion.
Yes.
Yeah.
So his last episode was, I looked it up, season 7, episode 20, called Journey's End. There was a character named the Traveler who sort of existed outside of space and time, and he said the Traveler
and that was a sequel to a decent episode from season 1 where Wesley first met the Traveler.
Yep. And so they brought the Traveler back, and the Traveler, who was tall and skinny and pale white, and I think had 3 fingers.
He had weird hands, yeah.
Yeah, said... Hold on.
The hell was that?
That's the dog, because my brother's here. The Traveler says to Wesley, hey, man, you're very special. You should come with me outside of space and time. And then he does.
Yeah.
That would be, I would think, fairly traumatic for the mother of her, 20-year-old son at this point. He showed up again at the Riker-Troy wedding at the beginning of Nemesis. Wesley did.
Now, was that in the film, or was that just one of the many cutscenes that everyone's mad was?
I think he had spoken dialogue, is what I was about to say. Is there another kind of dialogue that isn't spoken? I don't think so. I think
dialogue?
He was supposed. There you go. He had spiritual dialogue in that he said nothing, and I think there were scenes.
Yes.
He's sitting up at the table at the front of the wedding reception.
Yeah, this is another topic for another time, and you've apparently, I guess, Nemesis has become your favorite film now, so maybe we should talk about Nemesis.
All I
at some
talk
point.
about, apparently.
But apparently, the director of so they decided after Jonathan Frakes did First Contact and Insurrection, they decide to let, is it Stuart Baird? Is that his name? He was a great he was a great editor, and he edited the greatest movie ever made. You know what the greatest movie ever made was?
Citizen Kane.
Superman the movie.
All right.
There's great stories with him and Richard Donner, like constantly getting in fights and quitting and then making up like 15 minutes later, like all throughout the editing of and the film is, in addition to being shot beautifully, edited beautifully, I think. But
we should do Superman the movie.
Oh, definitely. But they give him the directing, like he, I guess, wants to, leap from editor to director, and he's directing Nemesis. And there's all these stories I remember hearing from the cast, like he didn't know Geordi was like a human. He was calling him like laser guns and stuff. Like he had no idea.
Let's get the robot over here.
Yes, he had, which is a great line later on. He has no idea what's going on. And then in the film, which I'm assuming if you start as an editor and then become a director, you have very strong feelings about cutting your own movie. They cut all these character moments out of Nemesis that in hindsight may have made the movie at least, a little more enjoyable for fans.
Yeah.
And that's one of them. I've seen this scene many, many times on some, crappy 4th generation copy from some edit bay of Wesley coming up and talking to Picard and Beverly. Can I ask about Wesley and about Will Wheaton? Does he get weird? He's strange in that he seems to get weirder the older he gets.
As a person?
Yes, or as a person,
I would agree.
or as an actor. Like he's just your kind of average annoying kid brother at the beginning of TNG.
Right.
And then he's sort of like a struggling college student at the academy, which is kind of cool. Then he's in Nemesis, he's a little weird.
Well, he's just sort of there, smiling in the background.
He's super weird
but also how
Picard
is he there?
season 2.
Oh man. Well, that's the thing.
He's
he's at the wedding in Nemesis, and then he shows up in the Picard season 2 finale, where he's still
back
a
with the
traveler. So
traveler.
I guess you can take it. I mean, what else? It's what I was going to say. It's going to sound dismissive and ridiculous, but it's true. I guess you can take time. You're a traveler. You can take time off from being a traveler to
go back
attend
to
a
Starfleet
wedding.
Academy. No, but wait a minute. I'm pretty no, wait. Now wait. Okay.
Wait.
This is another problem with Wesley. He's
Okay.
all over the place. So there are basically 2 story arcs going on with Wesley. There's the, normal coming of age, growing up, being a super whiz kid, being a real go-getter, trying to get into Starfleet Academy, trying to become a Starfleet officer. And then there's this other thing on the side where he's going to become this like extra dimensional being with this brilliant traveler guy. But both keep happening like out of order, which I guess could make sense if you're really being charitable, like in a Stephen Moffat timey-wimey kind of way, could work together. But there's basically there's one Wesley who, is a whiz kid, wants to get in the academy. Picard's kind of mentoring him. He eventually gets into the academy, and there's a really good episode, where there was a shuttle accident or something, and he's on trial, and Picard comes in. Then they bring him back at the end of season 7 when they're trying to wrap up points, like the Rolaren episode. Yeah. They bring him back, and he decides to go off with the Traveler. But then we see him in Nemesis, and he's back in Starfleet, and he's going to be on Riker's Titan. Like, he's going to like run the night shift.
Is that
That's one of the scenes that was cut. Yeah.
Oh, that was cut.
Yes.
Well, it didn't happen then.
You're right. Maybe it didn't happen. But he's the night shift chief engineer or something for Riker on the Titan.
I mean, I guess all bets are off. He could have lived 1,000 lifetimes as a traveler.
Well,
or something.
but wait a minute.
Who knows?
But I mean, if we're gonna get nitpicky about canon or not, he's in the same dress Starfleet uniform at the wedding.
Yeah.
So he's back in Starfleet, and now he's with the Traveler again. It really doesn't make it.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
At the end of Picard season 2, the finale, he shows up to recruit Core. I had to double check this because I forgot
what the hell her name is.
This character's name.
Idea.
But she was, I don't even want to go into it. The point is, it was an android daughter of Adam Soong, who I think, because his name was Adam, means he was the first Soong.
Oh, bro, of course.
I've put a lot of this out of my mind. It's dumb, but that was Wesley. He's gone, although he sometimes comes back. And that sort of goofy, middle-aged guy you were talking about, Will Wheaton, like he didn't show up, and he showed up, and I thought, oh, that's Will Wheaton.
Yeah, because he is even weirder on the after show thing that he hosts.
Yeah.
He's just a weirdo.
I don't want to slag on Will Wheaton, but I wouldn't call him. I wouldn't say I was his biggest fan. So you want to talk about Star Trek Picard now?
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Data. There's a lovely little scene of Data and Picard because Picard sits. Jack is gone at this point. Beverly runs out of the room to try and figure something out to save her son, and Data, or Data, depending on how you want to say it, if you want to be right or wrong.
Yeah, if you want to be
walks
wrong.
into the room, and he comforts his friend. I'm a big fan of the scene. He says, essentially, what can I say or do to comfort you? And Picard says, I honestly don't think there's anything.
And then he touches him on the shoulder.
And
which is what a sort of a feeling, caring person might do.
Yeah, right. And it's not the first or last time that somebody touches somebody on the shoulder in this episode to comfort them. But I'm a big fan of the scene because it's not, they do this a lot in this season, and I like this, which is it's not just a way for an old friend to offer comfort to another old friend, right? It's a way for Data, who just became essentially really human, to offer comfort in a way he never could have before. Like they created a character and gave him new things built on the old character, and then they put him in a scene where he got to do a thing that he never would have been able to do before. And I just liked it. It was good. It was good on multiple levels. So Jack flies to what looks like a Borg cube. We see it out the window of the shuttlecraft he's on. I'm not entirely sure it's a Borg cube because of later shots, but it's like a Borg city or floating. I don't know. I have no idea.
It definitely looks like a cube at some points.
Yeah. We're meant to think certainly in the first like establishing shot that it's a cube, but I swear there's more to it that is not super cubey. I'm not sure if that is important or not, but
super cubey.
Hello. So the TNG cast has an exposition scene next in which they explain how this thing that's not supposed to be possible is in fact possible.
Yes.
And this is, I was alluding to this earlier. This is what I was thinking about when, like, everybody, they've got to do a lot of explaining, and they just pass the explanation around the room so that everybody gets to participate.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about the exposition scene because it's important. They have to justify why this thing that, if you paid any attention to the Borg before, shouldn't be happening is happening. Like, all of that stuff with Jack makes no sense. So they had to write it up. And I have, to be clear at the outset, I don't know Borg canon in depth. I don't think you do either, right?
No.
We just know what we've watched and can sort of intuit a bunch of stuff. So Geordi says, all Borg undergo genetic alterations so that their bodies can communicate with their cybernetic components. That makes sense. As it turns out, yours, meaning Picard's, were just a little more extensive than we thought. New genetic code was actually written and stored inside you, something we were never able to detect 35 years ago. I thought, you know what my thought was at that point? Like, I kind of figured that technology wasn't, there's something I never articulated, but just thought about Star Trek, which is, what's 35 years in the future where they've already got everything figured out? They can make hot Earl Grey tea out of the air.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I didn't think, it's just a little bit like, I guess technology advances in the future. Sure, it works, but I just never considered the possibility. So then Mr. Data says, so the anomaly Dr. Soong discovered during the captain's transition into synthetic form was in fact dormant biological Borg adaptations. They never truly let you go. And then Worf says, see how they're passing it around? Yeah. It is why Vatic stole your body from Daystrom. The changelings extracted that altered portion of your DNA. That's my Worf, I guess. And Riker says, Jean-Luc as Locutus was a kind of receiver? And Picard said, that's why I could still hear them after I was assimilated, which is interesting because that's true. And I never once thought about it. I just maybe thought that that's how it worked.
Yeah, I never thought too much about it. I just assumed it was, so in First Contact, there's those scenes where he sort of, can hear the collective. Yep. And it never really bothered me. I didn't really dwell on it. I just figured, well, being assimilated is sort of a very complicated topic. Sure. I could see that as being a sort of after effect.
Yeah. Somebody says, I didn't label their name, your body could still hear the voice of the collective. And Beverly says, so how is Jack different? And Geordi says, your son appears to be a transmitter, able to send instructions. It appears the changelings, and then I think it's Worf who says, it appears the changelings stole your body to weaponize that Borg genetic code, right? So that answers all of the questions, basically, that we've had for so long, which is why is Picard's body still around, and what the heck did the changelings want with it, or what does the Borg want with it?
Well, wait, what was the intended use of Picard's body?
To extract the DNA,
and that was at what
to
point
weaponize
in our timeline?
The changeling stole your body to weaponize that Borg genetic code. So the changelings had been working. Well, they don't know at this point how the non-assimilated people, right? Because the way that the Borg have operated historically has been they'll assimilate you, make you a cyborg. See, this is where the word Borg comes from. Took me 27 years to put that together. It literally never once occurred to me. And then they can talk to each other as a collective. But like Jack is just putting his brain into other people, and like, I don't know how that works. So the way it works is, go ahead.
Well, in the timeline of season 3, when did they take Picard's body? That could theoretically be before the events of the very first episode.
Yeah, I agree. Yes.
Okay, because they had to steal that other portal weapon too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So the idea was they stole the portal weapon to distract from something else, but something else wound up being Picard's body. So the changelings were working with the Borg, and the reason that the changelings wanted Picard's body was so that they could extract the DNA sequence, incorporate it into themselves, I guess, and then spread it around. So this is a sort of extrapolation on what we talked about a couple of episodes ago, where Lore was working with the changelings just because they were against the people on the Titan. I think the changelings were working with the Borg, it seems to me, because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Starfleet has now, officially, it is Federation Day, March 5th. What the hell is the name of the day? Frontier Day.
Frontier. Why Frontier Day?
The space is the final frontier.
Okay.
That's I was trying to remember it that way, but it obviously hasn't worked yet.
That's very true.
So Starfleet is gathered by Earth, the Sol system, because it's finally Frontier Day. And Picard calls Shaw and says they got to get there, and Shaw is Shaw. It's like, you mean go to the worst place we can possibly go? And every moment with Shaw is precious. So we cut to Earth and Space Dock.
Oh, yeah, buddy.
And the new Enterprise, NCC 1701F, commanded by Admiral Shelby.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who Admiral Shelby is?
Yes, she is the famous Borg specialist
Yes.
who became Riker's second in command during the Best of Both Worlds.
Yeah, it is a heck of a callback.
Yeah.
They got this lady. She is from TNG, from the Best of Both Worlds, which is a great... You might as well connect this episode that's about the Borg directly to the most famous episode about the Borg, right? And she's, she, like you said, she was the Borg expert. So Starfleet, I think, put her on the Enterprise. Am I remembering this correctly? She was kind of a jerk. She was, that's right. Because Best of Both Worlds. Riker was going to be transferred to get his own command, right?
Yes.
And she and Riker didn't get along, and she made it, I think, pretty clear that she was gunning for his seat.
If you disagree with me, fine. You want to take it to the captain? Fine. You do an end run around me again. I'll snap you back so hard you'll think you're a first-year cadet again.
Whoa. Put her in her place.
That's right.
Now she's an admiral.
That's true.
So she explains, Admiral Shelby explains the technology that we learned about a few episodes ago when the Titan was running from the fleet, and it was easy to find the Titan because tracking was possible because all ships are now Battlestar Galactica-like networked and interconnected. I hope that you caught the reference to the USS Pulaski.
Oh, my Lord. Are you kidding me?
No. Do you need a moment?
Oh, I was okay.
Okay, yeah, it's okay. They remembered her. They just know she's garbage and belongs in the background. Shelby says, as we demonstrate our newest advancement, fleet formation, synchronous technology that allows every ship in Starfleet to operate as one, an impenetrable armada, unity and defense, the ultimate safeguard. And everybody watching this show is going, you idiot.
Pride goeth before the fall, eh?
Mm-hmm. The Titanic is unsinkable, you see.
God herself could not sink her. Wait, question here.
Yeah.
Doesn't this seem like basic technology that they would have had like before inventing a device that can break the speed of light?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's what I thought too. Okay.
Yep. So I guess there's an explanation for why.
All right.
Probably at some point, maybe. But yes, it seems general networking does not seem like, hey, maybe that's some
logistics.
of the technology that have advanced in the last 35 years.
Yeah.
So, they're watching this from the bridge of the Titan. And so when Picard says the irony of her endorsing something so Borg-like, he's referring to what she was when we saw her in TNG in 1994 or whatever. And they also gave 1990. Jeez. Oh, Christopher, as my dad used to say.
Anti-Borg.
They gave Riker.
Dave, it's not enough to just not be Borg. You have to be anti-Borg.
I see. Understood.
All right, thank you.
They gave Riker there it is, right from the mouth of Admiral Elizabeth Shelby line. They gave him that line so he could.
I'm getting fired up again, Dave.
As his old adversary.
Yeah.
You don't like her?
No, I'm getting fired up about this episode again.
It's so good.
Starting to build up again.
Jack beams into the Borg structure, weapon drawn, looking for the Queen.
And Jack, and just parenthetically, Jack does have this beautiful retro, like original series-esque phaser pistol, which is amazing.
God, yes. Yep. Yes, it's a gun that looks like a gun, and we're not trying to pretend that the gun he's very clearly holding in his hand to kill the Borg Queen with is anything but a gun.
Yes,
just own it.
It's the design. It's just tweaked a little bit, kind of Han Solo'd up a little bit, but there's the little handheld phaser thing that sort of snaps in the top of it, and then the rest of it is the sort of pistol grip, and it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. So he's walking around the hallway. It looks very Borg to me, which
kind
is
of abandoned almost, doesn't it?
Dimly lit and green. That which is green. I mentioned this earlier. Red is the color of his visions, but it is not the historical color of the Borg. The
historical color of the Borg.
That's how I say my things. As I do. Let's take a look at this gun. Hold on. I'm gonna go here. Oh, there. Oh, that's him. Wait, he's got a gun. I'm gonna put this gun. Nope. It's a terrible. Yeah. I'm trying to find a really good shot of the gun in for the show notes, and kind of everything's so damn dark.
I can send you one. I actually have the whole episode loaded up in Adobe Premiere right now, and I'm sort of watching along with you.
How could you do that? There it is. I got it.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
2252. It's gorgeous. I'm going to put that right in the old show notes. Jack and the Borg. Look at that. Watch. I'm going to write this. This is happening as we speak. Jack.
This is all staying in.
Oh, every bit of it. I'm not doing tons of editing on this. I want this up today. Jack and his beautiful, how do you spell? Beautiful gun. I'm not even going to call it a phaser. I'm a rebel.
It's firearm.
Look at that. Weapon. Firearm. Weapon. Okay. So Jack beams onto the Borg structure, weapon drawn, looking for the Queen because he is not turned bad. His intention was, when he left his dad, I'm going to go there and I'm going to end this. And the way he's going to end this is shoot that bitch. So
it's not really the best plan.
Nope. But it does feel like a Jack plan. Maybe take a moment here to talk about Jack. I think there were 20 trillion ways to make the son of Jean-Luc Picard an annoying pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And I think they did a really good job with Jack.
Yeah,
Like, there's nothing annoying about this guy to me, really. Nothing I can think of. But you're putting a lot on this guy's shoulders as a character and as an actor, and I think he's done well.
Did we get a credit on the voice of the Borg Queen?
We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Okay,
we should definitely talk about that.
I think I know who it is, which is interesting because there's been many Borg Queens.
Yes. So the Borg Queen is talking to Jack. She says, "Jack, my child." So she's claiming him, my flesh, blood. For all my darkness, you are light. For all my suffering, you are life. That's interesting. Jack says, "I don't know what I am, but I know I'm not yours." And she says, "Oh, but you are. I have thought of so many names for you. Regenerati, Pure Day." He says, "A fondness for Latin, I see. But I am neither your rebirth nor a child of God." I think that's very Star Trek atheism there.
Yeah.
Borg Queen says, "That's why you are Vox." I want to say Vox, but the subtitles say V-O-O with a tilde. Vox, which is just Fox, not Locutus, the one who speaks. You are the voice itself. So that's the transmitter, I think, is what she's saying.
Yeah.
I know you. I know you. I know you have felt it too, Jack. Believe it. That's a leitmotif, Bob. There's a lot of belief things here that have been going on. We've talked about this episode after episode. It's usually person to person. Riker has lost his faith, his belief, stares out into the void's got nothing because kid died and he was sad, had the temerity to be sad about his dead child. What? And I mean, Jack doesn't need to believe it. I don't know. He says, what I believe in is mercy, and that's what this is. So he's going to go kill the Borg Queen. And she says, what I see in you, what Vadic saw, an end. The vindication of both our species. Not sure what that means. She says to take everything back from those who lived like shattered glass. And she's being slightly insane and chuckling and laughing here. She says, if it were possible for you to kill me, because now he's found her and is aiming at her, you would have already. End your struggle, my child. Resistance is futile. And we see only the back of the Borg Queen, never her face. She plugs Jack in and his eyes go black. So the rule is with when you plug in and your eyes go black, you're part of the collective.
Yep.
Right? That's the way it is. The Borg Queen, I'm not I don't know how far down this rabbit hole to go. Always kind of a weird concept for me, the idea that a collective could have a singularity. I don't really get it.
It was just kind of it kind of makes sense if you're going with the drone, sort of the bumblebee metaphor. Right?
Sure.
I guess that makes sense. But it did always kind of diminish them, I think, a little bit after the first. It's the classic problem of the unbeatable, super scary villain like the Daleks from Doctor Who. Is the more you're around them and the more you inevitably beat them, the less creepy and scary they seem. And after Q-Who and the Best of Both Worlds, I don't think the Borg were ever quite as menacing as they were in those first two stories.
Yeah. So Alice Krieg, Krige, played the Borg Queen in First Contact.
Yes.
But as you said, others have portrayed the Queen since. She
on Voyager and in Picard.
Yes. Yep. So, and we've seen at least two queens, I guess, in Picard, Agnes and the other lady.
The other lady actually tragically died.
Which one?
The one who played the Borg
from
Queen
Voyager.
From season 2. She died very recently. She worked up until the end, apparently. She had cancer or something. Yeah. Really, really sad story.
Interesting. Maybe less interesting than sad.
Yeah.
I'll take that back. I wonder if they got Alice back for this.
I believe
that what you were...
So was her name is she credited in the episode?
I didn't look. I can.
Because a certain other actress is credited in the episode I was very pleased about, which we'll get to.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, yes. I know who you're talking about. It's Christopher Lee, of course. No. It's notable, as I said earlier, that we never see her face. The rule is, Bob, right? Like that is the established rule. If we don't see a face, it's because we know the face. We didn't see Worf when he was typing to Rafi. We didn't see Ro Laren when she was typing to Worf.
Yeah.
It's because we knew them. So my assumption at this point is it's probably Alice Krieg.
Yeah.
I don't know her voice well enough to know it. So yes, we get to a scene where Beverly, Data, and Geordi are analyzing the data that Rafi got off of the Shrike.
Information.
In last episode. That's it. And they have discovered that they have implemented portions of Captain Picard's Borg-altered DNA into the transporter system. Two things, Bob. Well, you know what? I'm going to go through this. First of all, Ro Laren. We talked about this at least 2 or 3 times in this. There's a throwaway line where Ro Laren is just like,
transporters?
I don't even trust transporters. And I kept saying to you, like, I don't get that line.
Well,
except to say that she was on, like, the end of that episode with Ro Laren was her thing done blown up and crippled the ship that was after the Titan. So I was like, okay, that could do it. But
and that is interesting writing. So it wasn't just how do we put her in a shuttle so that she's in a position to crash this into the ship so the ship can't pursue the Titan.
Yep.
It wasn't just that, which is great, but it's also ties into the overall story, which is nice. I just sort of assumed it meant, I mean, I'm scared of the transporter, and the transporter's not even real, because there's the whole thing about like,
weird.
are you being murdered every time you're transporting, and they're just making a perfect copy of you that doesn't know you've just died, which is a legit story. I remember some of the early Star Trek novels. There was one called, I think it was called Spock Must Die, and it was written in the 70s. It was one of the first Star Trek novels that I ever got as a kid, and the cover's really cool. It's got 2 Spocks on the transporter pad, and at the beginning of the story, there's a whole philosophical debate between Kirk and Bones and maybe Spock about this topic. Like, if you step into the transporter, are you getting killed every time they transport you? And then I think the premise of the story is there's some kind of transporter malfunction, and it makes 2 Spocks, which we've seen later, obviously.
Yeah. Yes, and in fact does happen.
But I just assumed, part of me just assumed it meant, oh, well, I mean, if the changelings are running the transporter, there's super easy to kill you. Just like, we had a slight blip on the transporter. Sorry, it's gone.
It is. You talked about this last week. It is the best kind of foreshadowing where you're not really thinking about it, or you're kind of thinking about it, but when it happens, you're like, oh, that was
surprising yet inevitable.
Yeah. There you go. So Geordi says the way that the transporters work is to simplify processing of millions of data points. The system stores coding that's common within each particular species.
This also does not fill me with hope that you're not being murdered in the transporter.
It's true. It also, Data says, it appears that Captain Picard's DNA is now considered common biology in the transporter system. And then Beverly says, so that's what they've been doing. So here's how it worked. They used the changelings to infiltrate starships, add the new Borg DNA to everyone who steps inside a transporter, every person, every species. So essentially, they have been assimilating the entire fleet this whole time without anyone ever knowing it. You talked about a few episodes of our podcast ago, this idea that maybe you could use a holodeck the same way that people used AOL Instant Messenger, which is, well, you're on
Skype
your holodeck and I'm on
Zoom
mine or whatever, right?
Skype or Zoom, yeah.
And it's neat when there's a new spin on old ideas. This is
Absolutely.
the newest
Clever.
spin
It's clever.
on the oldest idea. I love this idea.
I thought it was pretty damn clever.
They turned transporters into a weapon for the entirety.
Slowly weaponize the transporter.
Yep.
Just
person
no by person, transport by transport.
Yep. They were like, talk about an amazing way to use the changelings. They look like they infiltrate. They look like the people. They insert the code. They move on. It is, I love it. I love it.
Yep. It's cool.
So the Titan arrives in the Sol system just in time to see the fleet formation exercise, which Shaw says looks more like a firing squad. He's not wrong. And then they start to lose control of the Titan systems. It turns out that it is Picard addresses the fleet, and that gets he's basically saying, hey, everybody, changelings have infiltrated. But that gets cut off, interrupted, and they're picking up an energy spike, which is originating from the Borg, which is all these sort of spinning things. And,
it looks like
it's activation.
You know what it actually looked like is the well, it looked kind of like, I mean, of course, we all know it kind of reminds us all of the Protoculture Matrix that the Robotech Master Zor hid on the superdimensional fortress Macross 1. We all know that.
Yeah, you didn't need to tell me.
I mean, specifically the way the Matrix was described in the Jack McKinney novelizations. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry to be pedantic about it. But
I was going to say that if you did.
Yeah, I know. But it actually also reminded me a little bit of the machine from Contact, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call these things, but you've seen them before, which is like
spinning,
a bunch of circles spinning together.
It looks like a model of an atom almost.
It's pretty. Yeah. It's neat. And Seven feels this signal from the Borg in her head. I feel like this is the first thing that Seven may have had to do in this episode is hear the signal. There's a lot going on and a lot of people talking in this episode.
Yeah. Which I am not complaining about.
Nope. So Beverly, Data, and Geordi figure out that judging by the simulation they were running, the Borg genetic material doesn't propagate in a species past a certain point in the development cycle. So in other words, which for humans, that development cycle is age 25 when the frontal cortex stops development.
Again, very, very clever.
Super clever. Why is it clever?
Well, it's just a neat story idea, and we'll get to it at the very end of the episode because I have a question about how this entire series was devised. But yeah,
okay. So it might not affect the olds, but it will affect the youngest members of the crew, which is such a perfectly thematic thing.
The next generation, yes,
exactly correct. Right? They skipped what we haven't seen these people for 20 years. They've all started families, basically. What do? You hit them where it hurts for drama. And they, reverse engineered all of this.
Well, and clearly, I guess one way that it's clever is, if it didn't have some kind of an age cutoff, everybody in the show would be assimilated and the story would be over.
that would be the end, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess they didn't plan for that dumb changeling Borg plot. So what it means is that the people on the bridge of the Titan who are not old, including the LaForge daughters, are in trouble. Geordi asks the computer to find his daughter, and the computer has an oddly specific answer, Bob. The computer says, the life signs of Alondra LaForge are no longer compatible with human designation.
Yeah, that's a little...
Thank you for explaining that to the audience.
That's
computer.
A little convenient, yeah.
Yeah. So the younglings on the bridge look like Zombie Riker did last episode. So Zombie Riker last episode was foreshadowing. There's a bit of a leitmotif here, a little bit of, I think, of an evolution that's happened, which is so many times this season, terrible things happened to kids and parents freaked out. But it's not as if Geordi isn't scared. What happens when Beverly's kid leaves? She's like, I'm going to go figure something out. Or I'm going to do something. There were points at which Picard and Riker were paralyzed and making weird and bad decisions because of the kids. And Geordi, it's not like Geordi, he plays it, he's not freaked out. And as a matter of fact, Data, am I remembering this correctly, calms him down? But basically, because he says, what are you going to do?
We got to get a plan together here, bud.
Right. And channel your fear and your frustration into a mission and progress.
Yes, and this is the professionalism of Starfleet, which has been lacking in Trek for 20 years. Yes, this is exactly what these people, like we talked about Apollo 13, they were so calm on talking to NASA that they had to add some drama in the movie, which is otherwise pretty historically accurate, because it just wouldn't make for good drama. But I mean, this is what the Starfleet officers are like. They are trained and they are professional and they are better people than we are.
Yep. That's exactly it. And I have had problems. I've talked about it extensively in this season where people are acting weird for the sake of drama.
Sake of the plot.
There's nothing. Yeah. Right. And there's nothing about these reactions that seems weird to me. They are scared, but they are choosing to do their duty.
Yeah. Or they're not letting emotion overcome their logic, or they're sort of channeling that Kirk ability to synthesize logic and passion together.
There you go. And so the olds get off the deck of the Titan, and the younglings claim the Titan. So things have gone pretty terribly. So on the transporter, we have Riker, Picard, Shaw, and Seven. They hear the end of the Excelsior. I think this is a mechanical thing, but it's also fun little drama, right? Which is, well, you're thinking as the audience, why don't they regroup and take the bridge? And then they hear the recording of
them doing just
ship that did that, and they blew up the ship rather than the fleet using the new fleet maneuver turned on the ship and blew it up. So that eliminates that possibility.
All right, so let me nitpick one thing here about this, which I think is kind of interesting. I'm a big fan of the starship side of Star Trek. After they gave the Enterprise, so when Kirk and company got the new Enterprise A in Star Trek 4, that sort of started the tradition of Starfleet ships sharing the same name, getting an extra letter at the end, but it had the same registry number, like ABC.
1701.
Yeah. Now, in this series, it was postulated that is not always the case, that oftentimes ships will get the name of an old ship, but only very famous, prestigious ships are given the honor of the A, B, D. You know, it's kind of like retiring your number kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I was surprised the Excelsior wasn't the Excelsior A or the Excelsior B. It's at this point, and just like we've talked about before, just probably from budgetary and sort of reality reasons, the most successful ship design in Starfleet history, because we saw nothing but Excelsiors all throughout the 90s because they had an Excelsior model. But it's weird they didn't name that one. I thought the Excelsior A or B.
Yeah, I don't know what the story is there.
Yeah.
The last time I think we heard about the Excelsior was in fact in Picard.
Oh, it's at the Fleet Museum.
That's true.
It's so famous. It's in the Fleet Museum.
So I guess it's just another.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Can we look at the transport and see, like, there's that scene where they're watching it unfold right on the view screen, and it says
it's not the
NCC dash 42037.
So it was I believe it was the NX 2000 in Star Trek 3, denoting that it was like a test ship, like a experimental ship. And then when we saw it again in Star Trek 6, it was given the normal NCC 2000 because it had just entered service as just a normal ship. So yeah, it would be the NCC 2000 B or D or whatever.
Yeah. Oh boy, this screenshot that I have here that I just took when they're watching the Excelsior before it blows up is nothing but, I think, Easter eggs. There's all kinds of ships. Yeah. USS Hikaru Sulu.
Yeah, oh, nice.
USS Cochrane, as in Zephram Cochrane.
Yep.
USS Luna. Is that the moon?
Yep.
USS Intrepid. USS Clark. I just assume that all references to Clark in science fiction are Arthur C. Clarke.
There's
USS Magellan, Venture, Ross, Drexler.
Drexler's
Okuda.
So Drexler's a guy behind the scenes. He's like a special effects guy.
Oh, there you go.
He's been around forever. Michael Okuda is a guy who invented L cars, and he's been a big luminary.
Oh, your buddy. Yeah. USS Gilgamesh.
Yep, there's the Appalachia, the Ganymede, the Callisto, the Venture, the Akira, the Sutherland, the Okuda, you said, the Gilgamesh, the Oberon,
Mandel?
the Magellan,
Resnick?
the Gagarin, that's Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space, right? The Thunderchild, which I always love. So the Thunderchild may be the same. The Thunderchild was a ship from the Battle of Sector 001 in First Contact when they're fighting the Borg. But it's named after the ironclad that from H.G. Wells's War of the Worlds. The ship, nice. that tried to take down. There's a new Reliant. There's what else do we got? The Clark, you're right. The Forest, the Zhenghe. Is that the one Riker was on at the end of season 1? I think it was.
Where he was acting Captain Riker?
Acting Captain Riker.
Acting Captain. He's acting Captain.
You're right.
That's important.
He's got to say that into the microphone.
Yeah, but right. Hey, the other time I remember them talking about the Excelsior is, do you remember at the beginning of season 2, the first episode, maybe 2, were actually pretty good, and then season 2 just flushed itself down every diarrhea-filled toilet in the history of the universe? My understanding was one of the reasons, perhaps, that those episodes were good is that is when a certain Terry Matalas was actively working on season 2 before he peeled off before season 3. But like all of the sad, myopic bull from season 1 just disappeared for in those things in season 2. Then it just derailed.
Well, the fleet showed up in episode 1. And I was the only time I've been excited before season 3 started. There was a glimmer of, oh my gosh, this is the 25th century fleet. It's not just a copy and pasted one ship that looked horrible. It's one of them was the sort of 25th version, like the 25th century sort of upgrade of the Excelsior, which I think a lot of that stuff has come from the Star Trek Online, which I've never played.
Yeah. And I was probably talking about something, but I've lost it.
The Excelsior in episode 1.
Oh, yes, that's what it was. The Rafi and Elnor were, I believe, assigned to the Excelsior.
Nice. Okay.
At the time. So
good
it's
thing
possible
she didn't make it over there.
It's possible that they have just eliminated Elnor. Please, friend, choose to live.
Oh.
Yeah, it may in fact be that's what happened.
He's cutting off heads, but he's doing it like with
dead,
kindness.
isn't he? Oh no, he was. They
I have
undeaded
no idea,
him.
dude. I have
he was,
no
he
idea.
He was
if
dead. It's so hard to. I mean, my favorite things in the world, I remember.
He was kind of like an elf
with a pretty good with
like
a pretty
Legolas
good
with dark
memory,
hair.
but like things that I don't like. I invested time week after week watching Star Trek Picard's season 1 and 2, even though I greatly disliked most of them. And yes, I asked myself why I was doing this, and I don't even know. It was like hope against hope. But I am certain that the stuff I don't like just has no place in my brain. It just goes away. So I'm trying to piece this together from half memories. But I believe in season 2, Elnor was dead the entire time, but they were able to change the past so that he didn't die?
Yeah, I have no idea.
I don't.
And
I apologize if I'm wrong.
It's making me angry just trying to think about it.
Yeah. So the late Excelsior used 99 Delta Channel, which is for maintenance. Who figures that out but Shaw, the grease monkey from Chicago.
Yeah.
And that gives him the idea to go to maintenance deck where they think there are no guards or drones and maybe even a maintenance shuttle. So in space, we get a shot of the formation. It almost looks like they're not just randomly assembled.
It is a weird formation, isn't it?
It's like they're spelling something out.
That is the exact thing that I thought, and I was like, please, that would be, I was like, are they trying to spell Borg in space?
Like
that would be so lame.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's something.
Yeah.
I don't know why they arranged them like that.
Yeah.
Maybe they just thought it was pretty, but maybe that's coming back. Just put a pin in it. The door opens at maintenance deck, and everybody, all of the cast is standing there, sort of mostly pointing guns. And Picard, who is a father, reassures Geordi, who is a father, that they're going to figure stuff out and take care of the girls who have been assimilated. It's a nice moment. Again,
yeah, it is.
They formulate an escape plan, and Geordi says he has an idea. And it's at this point that I scream into the darkness of a basement where I'm watching this. Get to the Enterprise!
Yeah, I think we all know what's about to happen.
Yeah, and I screamed so loud that I scared my dog because she doesn't understand that I can scream out of excitement and not anger.
Yeah.
And she jumped up into my arms and was shaking. And I had to rock her back and forth and comfort her, the poor thing. Rudy, I love you, but you just don't get it. They have a fight in the hall because they've been discovered. Geordi and Data take the reins of the shuttle. There's a little comedy, a little bit of that joie de vivre when Data says, he's pessimistic, and Geordi's like, could you spice it? Could you be a little happy? And he's like, I hope we die quickly. And I don't think it was hilarious, but I think it was good. Rafi, Seven, and Shaw are holding off the advancing Borg.
Wait, did we miss the moment where Seven called Data the robot and Data just looked kind of confused?
We may have.
That was one of my favorite moments of the episode. She's like, the robot's right.
The robot's, yeah.
And Data just like, wait, what?
Yeah. It's a funny thing for her to say, too.
Yeah,
right? It's a good line
exactly.
for that
because
character.
You got to honor her. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
exactly.
very good. Rafi, Seven, and Shaw are holding off the advancing Borg in the hallway.
Yeah, I had a
Shaw
pretty good
takes one in the
idea
chest.
what was going to happen here.
Did you think that was going to happen? I did not see it coming.
I did, because basically everybody loves Shaw.
It's too good, man.
The memes have started to pop up like, Shaw at the beginning, everyone hates him. Shaw at the end, when he dies, everybody crying, like that sort of thing. Yeah. And I had read the description of, like, the official description, which is like a sentence or two, has something in there about a terrible sacrifice. And I'm like, well,
shit.
It's probably going to be Shaw, Seven, or Raffi. It's not going to be one of the original crew, because we're all going to get them together somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I had seen a screen grab of them in the shuttle together looking at something, and I was like, I probably know what that is. So, and I'm a little disappointed, because even though I do think he is a funny character because, as everyone says, he is like a character in Star Trek who does not want to be part of a Star Trek story. And he doesn't want to be in an episode of Star Trek, but he is in an episode of Star Trek. And he is a little bit like, it's a little Joss Whedon-esque 21st century sort of sarcasm. Feels a little out of place, but it's no denying he's like one of the most enjoyable things of this season.
He's so good he overcomes it.
If Terry Matalas, if fingers crossed he gets his follow-up continuing series, it would have been nice to have him be one of the leads.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he says it's not my ship anymore, it's yours to Seven. He would not call her 7 of 9. He says, you have the con 7 of 9. And like, that's, as
nice. Death
scenes go, A+.
Well, as a man who's always looking for themes and rhyming and late motifs, do you leitmotifs, what do you, how is his death scene interesting to you? The circumstances of it.
That he takes one in the chest and dies?
Yeah, but remember his monologue. What was his monologue about?
Where? Which monologue?
When he's in 10 Forward recounting the Battle of Wolf 359.
Well, his monologue was about how he was the only survivor. He got picked, and why did he live?
He was one of
angry.
He was one of the people who was randomly chosen to go in the escape pod, right?
Bob, well, I'm covered in goosebumps. His problem was it's the Battle of Wolf 359, and he's basically lived with survivor's guilt since, because he was randomly selected. He didn't die there. He was randomly selected to go on the escape pod. I didn't realize this, Bob. You are absolutely right. And here, while everybody's getting on the escape pod, he sacrifices himself.
That's right. He says, there is no way I'm getting back in that escape pod.
Yep.
No way.
That is yeah. It's fantastic. I just and again, he dies by he evolves when he dies, right? He doesn't die with a Shaw line of, well, you can all kiss my ass, I'm out. Although that would have been pretty good.
I kind of expected him when he was like, come here. Like, he's playing, so Matalas is directing. I'm assuming I don't know for sure. I don't know how much experience Matalas had. When a showrunner directs, it's always very interesting what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And Shaw plays that death at first very weirdly. Like, no, come here. And like, oh, what is, please tell me he's not going to do the, like, what's a butt for pooping, like, please tell me he's not. But no, it was a really sweet moment.
Yeah. So, I'm bummed because I wanted a 7 Shaw show after this, but if they're going to, they leave the door open for other things, obviously.
That really is the ultimate irony about death scenes, is that you only care about death scenes when you don't want the person to die.
Yes, it's true.
Like, if they kill whatever the Romulan sword master dude is, I don't care. I don't care. I'm not happy. I'm not sad. But Shaw, you legitimately wanted to just keep watching him.
He was Rafi's fine. I do not dislike her.
Rafi's fine.
There were times when I did dislike her.
Well, wait a minute. Sorry.
She was the worst when she showed up.
She's fine because she's in this season written by other people. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. She's not emblematic of like, she's not like just stoned, vaping, cynical,
drinking,
like non-Star Trek person. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. But again, I'm not going to rehash that. But the point is, the person she is in this is far superior than the version of her character in previous seasons, right?
Yeah.
And where they leave it here is Seven and Rafi are going to be in that hallway defending while everybody gets on the ship. And I said it before, I thought it was pointless and probably just straight political in the way that I don't like that they put that they put Seven and Rafi in a relationship apropos of nothing.
Yeah.
And then broke them up.
Yeah.
Well, there on the Titan together.
It does,
and,
yeah.
And
again,
there's a poetic way to make this
made
kind
it
of
better.
work.
Metalis made the material better.
Yeah.
It's like when so Shaw doesn't get in that shuttle, and I think as a viewer, you are always questioning people who willingly put themselves in harm's way. Right? You're like, would I have the courage to do something like that?
Sure.
Oh, I don't think I could ever do that. But just like we said, because of the way Metalis has set this season up, if you sit down and think about it, you understand if you were Shaw and if you were in that position, there's no way in hell that you wouldn't have done what he did. Right. There's just no, it would have been a fate worse than death, literally worse than death, to get in that shuttle.
Yeah.
So
wasn't happening again.
And same thing with Rafi and Seven. It made perfect sense. Like, nope, I'm staying with you, and we're gonna deal with this together. Like, made perfect sense.
Yes, you remember that fairly silly scene that I pointed out last week where Rafi was like, "I'm gonna fight changelings with a knife in the hallway."
Yeah.
Well, she's just doing a version of that this week that makes infinitely more sense.
Yeah. Yep.
So even the bad thing led to something that was better.
Yeah, the episode, there's so much crammed into this episode. You would think that they would have called out Shaw, the sort of connection like we were talking about with Shaw and the escape pod incident earlier, which they really didn't call out very strongly. And then Worf, you figure Worf might have had a line about Rafi staying beside. I don't even think he said anything when she did that, did he?
No. He didn't call her Rafaela.
Yeah.
And then leave.
Yeah.
No.
Time is at a premium in this episode.
Yeah. So next we are with our friends from Star Trek: The Next Generation, and I know exactly where they're going. I figured this out several weeks ago, and I didn't feel like it spoiled a thing. In fact, what it felt like was finally they get to do the thing that I'm really hoping that they're able to do. Geordi says, "We need a ship, something older, analog, offline from the others." And Riker goes, "You think we can use one of these?" And Geordi says, "Well, I was going to save this as a surprise one day, but I guess there's no time like the present." And the doors, labeled 21 forever, whatever that means.
No, 12.
Open, and inside is the Enterprise D. And never show weakness on the internet is the general rule. I'm telling you at this point, I knew this was coming.
Yeah.
I figured out it was going to happen, and the next thing I know, I have tears in my eyes. The hit of the music, the Enterprise D, which I never thought I'd see. I mean, the last time we saw the damn thing was in 1990. What? 4
or 5? Yeah.
Right. Yes. At this point, I absolutely all of the stuff combined, and it put tears right in my eyes. Geordi says, the saucer was retrieved from Viridian 3 so as to not influence the system. So it crashed at the end of Generations on that planet. He said, "I've been restoring it bit by bit over the last 20 years. Engines in the cells come from the USS Syracuse." I'm glad that these sentences are in there. I'm so willing to forgive anything just to get to this moment.
Yeah.
It would have been okay if they didn't do it. I don't care how they got here. Basically, I'm just happy that they're here. But again, I also appreciate that they came up with the story. And the next scene.
Well, wait, hang on. Worf's got a really great line too. Do you remember Worf's line when they're on the shuttle?
What does he say?
Well, Geordi says, "Well, and we couldn't use the Enterprise E." Because everyone's thinking to themselves, wait a minute, why don't we use the Enterprise E that was technically, granted, look, if you are a human being, if you have a beating heart, you are more interested in seeing the D than the E. However, the E is the souped up, sweet, warship, hot rod version of the D, that's supposed to be way more advanced, and it's great. Yeah. Geordi's like, well, we can't use the Enterprise E. And everybody just looks at Worf. Like, that was not my fault.
It was not my fault.
Which is great.
Because what happened?
Nobody knows. That's what's beautiful about it. Look, it's just like when TNG came on the air, I had no idea what happened to the Enterprise C. Yeah. If it was still around, if it was destroyed, whatever. And I didn't care because, first of all, it's interesting. Maybe we'll find out someday, which we do, and it's one of the best episodes. Yeah. And it's just reality. Like, people, there was an Enterprise carrier in World War II. There was the famous nuclear USS Enterprise carrier in the U.S. Navy, and I think that one's been I know that one's been decommissioned because I saw them taking it apart in Norfolk, and I think there's going to be a new USS Enterprise. But nobody, like the people on the new Enterprise, are not going to stand around and constantly talk about, well, remember the famous Enterprise from 1968. Like no one's going to say that. It's just real. But it's great that we still don't know what happened to the E. There's still stories out there to be told.
And they made a joke about it.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah.
And then the scene.
Yep. At this point, I can't contain myself, and I'm holding my dog, who I'm comforting, and I'm. It's not just teary now. It's everything has combined to get us to this moment. And the doors open, and one by one, the crew of Star Trek The Next Generation walks on to the bridge of the Enterprise D. And I honestly would not be surprised. We'll see. I'll bet you this will come out there if it's true. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if they kept this from the actual actors and put them in there and open the doors and let them walk out. And what we were, basically just told the film crew.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Told the guys, walk wherever you want, and told the film crew to film it.
Yeah.
That's how real it felt to me. Now, I was bought in. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
But I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. They do this awesome. There are several little shots of LCARs like starting up.
Yeah, lighting up.
Which is just great. They turn on the lights, and that's it, man.
They actually turn the lights on.
They are standing on the deck of the Enterprise D, and dude, like, here's the thing. We have talked. There's a Captain America movie. I can't remember if it was The Winter Soldier, or if it was Civil War. But I remember listening to the commentary, and the Russo brothers, I think, were talking about their choices. And at one point toward the end of the movie, Captain America puts on the Captain America suit. So it may have been the Winter Soldier because he had it off a lot in there. But they said they deliberately desaturated the entire movie so that the point at which he put on the red, white, and blue suit, it popped more. They did all of that.
Yeah.
So this moment became bigger visually. Now, I know that what they were doing with Picard Season 3 on the Titan was just carrying forward in the most straightforward possible way the darkness of all of this Picard stuff, or all of this Kurtzman era Trek stuff, right? But there's another way to read this, which is what a contrast when they get onto something that's just lit correctly.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's just such a huge impact to get onto this thing. And they didn't darken the Enterprise D.
Yeah.
To make it fit in. They just did the Enterprise D.
And it still, I mean, now, make no mistake, it looks great. It is, I don't know if it's a filter. I'm a big fan of diffusion on a lens. If it's diffusion on the lens, if they have actually hazed the room, but there definitely looks to be some atmosphere there.
Softness?
Do you kind of see that? Yeah. Like the light kind of blooms a little bit, looking like either a combo of haze in the room or on the lens. It looks beautiful. It's shot with those anamorphic lenses that gives you much more shallow depth of field. So it definitely looks, it still retains the essence of this modern cinematography, of this modern sort of wannabe Hollywood cinematography. But it's still lit closer to how it was lit seasons 2 through 7. And I'm sure somebody will do the breakdown of, well, this is not an exact replica and this is not any one bridge. I don't know. But the bridge did look different in yesterday's Enterprise. You know, it looked more like Starfleet ships look now in the series. There's the bridge as it looked, which I thought looks pretty cool. The upgrade they gave it for Generations right before it was destroyed looked kind of like the yesterday's Enterprise bridge, but they specifically went for the sort of season 2 through 7 look. The brightness, the walls, there's little things that you recognize what the side panels look like. It's a beautiful scene.
Yeah, it's just gorgeous, and it's just nice. It's nice to be back. And they undercut a lot of the seriousness with a bunch of jokes, which I thought were pretty good. I think Riker asks if everything was smaller or if he's just bigger.
Yeah. Picard's got the carpet quip.
Picard makes a joke about he's realizing he's on the ship, and what he realizes he actually missed more than anything else being there with his friends was the carpet.
Yeah.
Because it was carpeted. And that like trope in movies where somebody's crying, but then somebody makes a joke and they laugh, so they ugly laugh?
Yeah.
I literally did that alone in the basement, unless you count Rudy the dog.
It's
but
a little, I don't know. I mean, Metalis clearly, my personal theory is that he came up with this scene and then had to reverse engineer how are we going to get this to okay, we need them all on the bridge. They're all old. It's got to be an old ship. So he had to literally come up like, all right, the ships network together.
They reverse engineered,
but it only affects
moment.
Everybody younger than us. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Data has that great line. Did you see the one part where Data goes to grab his chair and then doesn't touch it? Reverse go, whoa, wait, are we sure this isn't networked? Because he's Data and he doesn't, he's afraid he's going to touch the panel or something and he's going to get assimilated.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. And Geordi says that the D is the last functional ship in the fleet not tied to the system.
Nice.
So there you go. Picard reactivates the D. The computer says in Majel Barrett's voice, USS Enterprise now under command of Captain Jean-Luc Picard. And Picard sort of smiles and says, because he's an admiral, I'll take the demotion. You know what that reminded me of? We talked about this many episodes ago. And I didn't know kind of what the point was. And this kind of might be the point, which is sort of putting ego aside, maybe is the way to frame it. But like in the first episodes of the season, Picard was like barking at Jack to call him. There was at one point, call him Admiral.
Yeah.
Data's been calling him Captain for episodes. Nobody's corrected that. Ro Laren did the thing where she chastised, I want to say Picard, maybe
I'm a commander
Riker,
now
maybe
or
both.
something. Yeah.
Right. And here he just puts ego right aside. It's happy to be Captain Picard, which is, as I've spoken about time and time again, kind of the most magical thing about this season, which is they just stopped trying to hide from the best things. They made a new thing. They took the best of the old, and then they also made a new thing.
Yeah.
And they didn't apologize for it, and they're not embarrassed about it. They just did it lovingly and smartly. And Picard gives us sort of a mini Picard speech. He says, we've been here before, and I'm reluctant to ask you all to face this threat again. And Riker says, we are the crew of the USS Enterprise. But more than that, we're your family. Deanna says, Jack, Alondra, Sydney, the kids, the next generation, they're our family too. Riker says, Jean-Luc, wherever you go, we go. Sort of everybody looks at each other and nods in agreement. And Picard says, thank you, number one. Stations, please. It's everything that I wanted. It's just, they sort of manufactured, as you said, an entire story arc to make it to this moment. And it's a friggin' masterstroke.
Yeah.
And this, by the way, is also like every leitmotif of family and crew as family that they have been doing over and over and over again culminates in this moment, right? It's like, it's been such a huge part of every episode that it feels hardly worth repeating that it's what the entire season has led to. Like when Riker says we're the crew of the USS Enterprise, he's literally wrong, but like right in my heart. You know what I mean? Like literally in the sense that they're not assigned to that ship, but morally correct. And but more than that, we're your family is the same thing. They're not literally family, but they are practically, morally, ethically, whatever word you want to use. They will always be the crew of the Enterprise, and they will always be family. Doesn't matter, and that's okay. And that's the point of Picard season 3, and frankly, the anti-point of seasons 1 and 2, where they just spent all of this time trying to deny the best thing.
Yeah, I knew what was going to... I had a very good idea that what we were going to see when those doors opened, and I'm very cynical and I'm very sarcastic, and I don't often get a catch in my throat. But I didn't necessarily cry, but I definitely I found myself being mildly choked up and then talking to myself like, what is wrong with you? You knew this was going to happen. It's just a silly show.
That's the beauty of it.
But it doesn't matter because you don't, you can't tell yourself what to feel. You just feel what you feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's an exterior shot of the Enterprise D. She lights up, pulls out a space dock, and warps out of frame.
The interesting about the doors, this is a super nerdy point. They reuse the footage from Star Trek 3 of the Enterprise, of the original movie era Enterprise coming into that space dock, right? Mm-hmm. And they reused it in TNG for the one where the Binars steal the Enterprise. And Andrew Probert,
1001000100101.
Andrew Probert was still on staff, and he was like, "Look, this is before the 10 forward blow up." He said, "The Enterprise is clearly the Enterprise A fit right through those doors perfectly. The Enterprise D, if this is the same space dock, which they're claiming it's a space station, but looks exactly like the space dock from Star Trek 3, it doesn't make any sense that." The space dock has been scaled up perfectly so that the Enterprise D, which is much bigger than the Enterprise A, also fits through these doors perfectly. And he said he came up with all these designs like, let's have it dock on the outer ring or whatever, which looks kind of like the museum looks now. Yeah. And the producer's like, no, this is too much money. We're literally just putting the Enterprise into the same exact effect shots. Yeah. And it's nice that in this, when the D leaves space dock, it's totally different doors. Like they've built larger doors.
It's very good. I like that kind of nerdy point.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, at this point at the end of the episode, they burned thousands of calories getting back together and learning to trust each other. Like, they distrusted, they were angry. I was sometimes annoyed. They were paralyzed. I was like, why are these people not acting like family? But at this point, that's over with. They are on the bridge of the D, working in harmony. They're a team. They are a family. It is the old days. And like, it doesn't matter that we talked about family, like the leitmotif of family complicating everything, but like they're growing, they're overcoming, they're doing it together. They worked, even the moments that were speed bumps, that's the word. Road bumps are not a thing. I mean, I guess technically they are, but it's not a word. Speed bumps along the way got them here. And it's just so easy to see why I guess they did what they did. And, the show is just straight up embracing its past, which I think is what people wanted. And you get to moments like this because of it. I loved this episode more than I can explain. Yep. I knew what was going to happen, and I still sobbed. And the thing, you know why that is? I mean, I know what I was thinking at the moment, and I can tell you the last time I thought this, which was there was a panel, probably at a Star Wars celebration. I'm going to guess 2014, in that era, before the Star Wars prequels. But like, we knew that there were going to be more Star Wars movies, that Luke, Han, and Leia were coming back. And I think it was the time when, it's before any of the movies were out. And it was after, I think Harrison Ford wasn't there. He was supposed to be there, but he broke his foot getting into the Millennium Falcon or whatever. But I was working at Polygon, and I came in, it feels like I came back to my computer in my office after lunch, and this thing was on, and I was watching it for news or whatever, and Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher walk onto the stage, and I felt myself get choked up. It was out of absolutely nowhere, and the thought that kept going through my mind was, this was not supposed to happen. Like, this was, Star Wars was gone. There was a new Star Wars at one point, but it was a different Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
Like the prequels or not, it wasn't exactly the same. And Luke Skywalker's story was over, and we were going to get more of it. And it was just this, it was moving because because it felt like a gift. Now, this is not about the Star Wars sequels, but I would argue it was somewhat less of a gift.
Wasn't the greatest gift we had hoped for you.
No. Picard Season 3 is effectively TNG Season 8. I don't care what it falls into. what series they call it.
Yeah.
But they just, as I keep saying, they stopped being afraid of embracing the past. And this was not supposed to happen for 20. Like, I'm obviously a Next Generation fan, but I'm not like rabid. I'm not. I don't watch it all the time. I don't think about it all the time.
See it on the DVR. It's nice to drop
sure,
in. Yeah,
sure, right. People still have DVRs.
You know what I mean. You see it
I
on
do.
the TiVo.
Sure. But I just, but obviously it's one of my favorite shows. But I don't have any posters. I don't have historically I was a bigger. Hey, I've had Star Wars posters,
yeah.
I guess,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I've not had Star Trek posters, but like, it's insane, Bob, to me that every principal actor is still alive and together again after 20 years. And not only that, but for the last 20 years, this show that I really liked and these characters I really liked just ended on a big downer, on a big bummer. This was never supposed to be something I thought I was going to see. And not only did we now see it, but it didn't have the Star Wars problem. I got Luke Skywalker again, and he was essentially unrecognizable.
Yeah.
And now I have the entire cast of Star Trek to the Next Generation, and they're exactly who they ought to be, and they're exactly where they ought to be. And that...
Oh, Dave.
It's a day.
I think
Yes.
you just said something. I think they missed a trick. They should have named the show Star Trek to the Next Generation.
Oh,
isn't that
Star
nice?
Trek 2 :
No, well that, but also two.
was a
Like
joke.
we're you're trekking somewhere. Where? We're trekking
Star
to the
Trek.
Next Generation.
That's good.
You like that?
Do you have Terry's email?
Yeah.
Can you share that with
Star
me?
Trek to the Next Generation.
That's it.
But it's funny because it could
Look
be
who's talking, comma, TOO.
No. It's
What?
Trek TO the Next Gen. We're trekking to the Next Generation.
Star Trek TWO.
Star Trek TO the Next Generation. But then it can also be
TOW?
But then it can also be Star Trek TWO the Next
There you go.
Generation.
And
Damn.
and then you put the 2 behind it.
Yeah. Oh.
See? I've designed the logo.
No, really. Wait.
No,
wait.
it's very good.
Star
Bob.
Trek is about you trek somewhere. You
To the
trek
stars.
You're trekking to the stars, but why have they ever named one of the Star Trek series or movies Star Trek to somewhere? Have they ever
No.
done that?
They should.
Star Trek to stars. Thank you.
Star Trek to outer space.
Yes. Star Trek to adventure.
You want to do speculation segment?
I don't know. Do you, or do you just want to bask in this and just wait for the fireworks?
The only thing I have to say there
All
is
right.
I don't really have much to think about, and I
No.
thought that maybe we'd see other things in action, like Voyager and whatever.
Yeah,
But
that
according
that
to what
always seemed a
Jordy
little
said
fan,
to me,
that seemed a little
Yeah.
fan wanky.
Don't you insult me on my own podcast?
All right, I'm sorry.
What? I don't know. Yeah, I just thought that they would all not be networked.
Now, wait a minute.
But Jordy said in this episode, this is the only ship. And I was like, oh, okay, Simon's wrong.
Well, no. Oh, he said operation. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
see, why'd he say that? Because we still could have had you're right. It might be a trick too far, but you still could have like Captain Janeway, Admiral Janeway, sort of warping at the last minute next week.
Sure. I mean, I wouldn't be
I brought a couple
surprised.
old friends with me, Captain.
Sure.
Yeah.
That is exactly what she sounded like.
And I still am hoping, I've already said this, I'm still hoping at some point there's some crisis, there's a little beat of like, despair, and somebody says, here, Geordi, this'll help. And they give him the visor.
Yeah, buddy.
That's what I'm waiting for. Look, Geordi, this is one of my other hot takes. Is Geordi as cool without the visor? Because I don't think he is.
No. I mean, he shouldn't have the visor, but also,
Yeah, come on.
You're missing
Get the
something,
visor on. Let's
right?
go.
you know,
I don't know. I mean,
was-
not clear what they're going to do, how they're going to take on the
I don't even
entirety
wanna
of
think about it.
Starfleet and all the Borg with just the Enterprise. But
Sure.
we've
Whatever.
been
Well-
here before, Dave.
Well, yes, right. Well, I'm not sure that the Borg. I mean, maybe the Borg isn't so hostile.
Oh,
maybe-
well, they're
why not?
murdering people left and right.
Well,
I mean, did they just
yeah.
kill?
I-
They just killed
Okay.
Admiral Dennehy on the bridge
Akbar.
there, didn't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
They just shot her.
On
Boom,
second
boom.
thought.
Yeah, they're just
second
mowing
thought, perhaps.
down people.
Yeah, well, we'll see. NCC 1701A, you say?
Oh yeah.
The USS Excelsior is in the closing credits, but I guess that's now blown up.
Most
Well,
of
maybe not the old one.
this would be fun for you to maybe really go through those credits with a fun. Oh my god!
Hey, you know what's in the credits is a thing I saw and thought, oh, we'll figure out what that is at one
the
point.
genetic sequence thing.
Where
Mm-hmm.
the visual representation of
CBBB,
Borg
whatever.
transmitting. Yeah.
Oh, and Jack
is in the credits.
And Jack's the sort of visualization of Jack being a transmitter is kind of there too. I'm wondering now if there's anything left in the closing credits that we don't understand.
We haven't seen.
Yeah, I think it's
know.
basic. Of course, I thought that before, and
Yeah.
then we just got the DNA thing. So yeah.
I think what we should do is like the next 2 episodes of this podcast. Like obviously we're going to do one about the finale, but I think the episode after that should be just about the series.
Yeah.
And one part
definitely.
of that
Yeah.
episode. Well, first of all, I think we should bring in a guest or two.
Sure.
Second, I think we should absolutely go through the credits, essentially shot by shot, maybe not frame by frame, and
Frame
go
by
through
frame.
like, oh, this what this was, and
Wait,
this is
I don't.
what this was.
I don't think we could do that anyway because I don't think they're putting this out on CAV Laserdisc.
Is that true?
Yeah,
Man, I
think
remember
they've
that
canceled
last reel of Mission Impossible, the first Mission Impossible where he's on the train.
Yeah.
That was
CAV.
What did they call it? CAV, where it was just it would count very quickly.
So it was like one rotation per frame or something, so you could get like crystal clear pausing. That's how far we've come and how little we appreciate anything. We used to spend we would get Star Wars. We would spend hundreds of dollars for the player to buy Star Wars on a set of discs that was hundreds of dollars that we would have to flip every 30 minutes just for the only reason, the privilege of crystal clear freeze frames.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Sometimes
Yeah.
you could do crystal clear freeze frames, but my thing was CD quality audio.
Yeah, buddy.
That was a big deal. I have to say, written this episode by Sean Tretta, Tretta, and Kylie Rosetter.
Okay, but directed by Metalis, and I believe he directs and writes next week.
Directed by Terry Metalis. I don't know who these folks are, but boy, they had a heck of an episode to write, and they knocked it out of the park.
Yep, excellent.
They really did.
They really pulled the good duty, huh?
Yeah.
They really got lucky on that bingo card.
Did you say duty?
Duty.
That's it.
Duty.
Duty. Yeah. It's I cannot. I am sad that there's only one episode left, but I lived to see this, and that's great, man.
Well, I
great.
got up early,
It's great.
just like as I've already said, we both woke up and watched this at like 7 a.m.
Yeah, you texted me last night, basically saying like, "Hey, man,
We
people are talking
can't
like this
stay
one's going to
on-
be huge.
we can't
don't
get
sleep
on
it."
social media. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, normally in my household, the tradition is to wait for the sun to go down a little bit because I have a home theater projector that we use.
Projector.
And so I kind of wait for the sun to go down for the best picture quality. So my family has not seen this yet. And even there, they're not exactly rabid Star Trek fans, but even there's a little bit of buzz like, oh, I wonder what's behind the door. Am I kind of right in some of my theories? So, in about, about 45 minutes here, I think we're going to fire up the episode again.
Yeah. Borg Collective says, a message to those who resist. Your armada has been added to our own. Your weak and willful will soon be eliminated. Your strongest have already been assimilated. We are Borg. Starfleet now is Borg. Maybe I should take back the what if the Borg are not necessarily bad.
I mean,
Seems like they might be.
It would be funny if they thought. I mean, look, every bad guy thinks they're the good guy, right?
Yeah, nobody thinks they're the. That's
Yeah.
it's a great line from the talented Mr. Ripley. Nobody thinks they're the bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Holy crap! This was good.
Yep.
I'm a broken record at this point, but damn, dude, damn.
Well, we got. You know what? They did miss one trick, Dave.
What was that?
He did not recreate the to be continued moment from The Best of Both Worlds Part 1. I thought for sure that in one of these episodes,
That could have been
possibly
fun.
this one, it was going to end with something to the, Mr. Worf, fire, dun dun dun, da da da, dun dun da, da da da.
Well, maybe our next episode will be to be continued.
Mr. Worf. Fire. All right.